Welcome to the only place where real, raw, and vulnerable conversations happen with IFBB Bikini Pros to give you an inside look at their struggles, strategies, mindset, passions, and all of life beyond the stage. This podcast is made to inspire, motivate, and remind competitors and the average gym goer that even the most extreme lifestyles and elite athletes have their ups and downs. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm your host, Celeste Rains-Turk, and now it's time for the Confessions of a Bikini Pro podcast. Today's guest has been on the podcast before, back in 2020 when she was pregnant with her first of two children during our Mother's Day series, where she discussed her experiences with infertility, thyroid cancer, if it fits your macros approach, and eating on the go, among many other aspects to her journey. But this athlete has since retired from the sport for good and now focuses her career and her background as a clinical nutritionist, IFBB pro, and mother of two kids with another on the way currently, very soon. By the time y'all hear this, maybe we would be saying she has three kids. So she has all this energy being put into her YouTube channel that she made to help kids see fitness and food as fun. Welcome to the show, SHAYLA Hubbard. How are you doing?
I am amazing, Celeste. It is so good to be able to chat with you again. I'm so happy to be here.
Me too. What a journey the last 5 years have been. I think both of us have changed so much. And what I've appreciated is we've maintained a relationship and we've talked and exchanged voice memos about our views and our opinions. Some differ, but most very aligned. And I was really excited about the potential of bringing you back on. And now you're here and we get to hear the insight of someone who has stepped away from competing and doesn't even promote it anymore. So, it's a different approach. It's a different topic for listeners that we're going to get into, and it might ruffle some feathers, as they say.
That is very valid. And I am all for it because I still have a very strong respect for competing. Though to your point, I really don't promote it anymore. Even being a professional in the sport as an IFBB pro, it's like, yes, I got my pro card and that was such an amazing step. And I'm so grateful. And there have been so many things throughout my competition journey that have really primed me for what I'm currently doing, which is really amazing. And that involves things like motherhood and being a mom and doing things with my kids' YouTube channel and how I approach nutrition and fitness, both for my health and for other people. So I feel like a lot of the competition stuff was monumental in this transformation. We were talking before we clicked record that I am a new Shayla from our last
Yes.
conversation that we had in 2020.
Oh, definitely. And I like what you just said about how you respect bodybuilding and everything it's given your life and how you're applying it now. That's something I talk with my husband Paul about a lot, is like I'm in this season of competing where I'm ready to step away. But I want to give it my all in the last, like, I look at the calendar and it's like 12 weeks. And, it hit me yesterday. I said to Paul, I was like, yeah, well, after this, I'm going to be done. And I don't want to get to the end of this and go, well, I wish I would have blah, blah, blah. And I cried, and I haven't cried about it yet. And I realize it's because the reality of that is getting closer. But something we always talk about is how much bodybuilding has been an influence in my life that I'm excited to apply it to these other areas and to see how that looks. So, um, let's just dive right in. I mean, first of all, you've never been on the podcast not pregnant, which
It's so valid. And Celeste, I know most of your listeners will listen, but if you're watching on YouTube, check out this bump that I got going here, guys. I am 37 and a half weeks. I'm due in 2.5 weeks. My son, my second, he came 2.5 weeks early. So I literally could go into labor today.
on the podcast. She's going to start her home birth on the
I
podcast.
was taking a nap recently and I literally had a dream that my water broke during our podcast.
Oh my gosh.
Pray that doesn't happen.
You know what? I sometimes like, okay, actually, I had a dream that my sister had a girl because my sister's pregnant with her second.
Okay.
And I had a dream that she was having a girl. And then the night before she found out that what she was having, she had a dream that she was having a girl. And they woke up the next day and she checked and she's having a girl. And I
Oh
was
my
like,
gosh.
oh, these things are too real. Like, so we'll see. Whatever happens, happens. Um, I'm up for it. So obviously I'm happy you're here. And something that I'm just gonna say it. We've exchanged voice memos about more specifically what got us to come back onto the show is we've talked about things in the industry like pornography, hypersexualization of women in the fitness industry, your decision to quit competing altogether. And I want to crack open some cans of worms, maybe inspire new perspectives and allow for other perspectives to be heard, especially from a retired bikini pro. I think that's really important to accept and understand that one, there's life after bodybuilding, and two, our perspectives grow and change with us. And that's perfectly okay and understandable. Just because, let's say 5 years ago, you said, I love competing. This is so awesome. These are my plans doesn't mean 5 years later that's what you have to uphold as an identity. So, what are your thoughts on competing now versus years ago? How has your perspective evolved?
Yes. When I was in the heat of competing, I was not only a competitor and I was really heavily tied in with a coaching group, which I still love and advocate so heavily for their Team Fit Bliss. I love them so much. I've been with them this whole way through, and they're local in Utah. I'm coming to you live from Utah. and and so I built so many wonderful relationships from not only coaching but as an athlete. And I had plans to go to the Olympia. That was like my goal. I remember I went on a cruise and I even went to Olympia, Greece, and I got like some of these mementos that I still have on my desk that are like, I
Wow.
will be on the Olympia stage and I'm going to make it as a not only a professional athlete, but as a natural athlete. And I want to take this to the utter extreme lifestyle. Like I love everything about it. So I lived and breathed this for so long. And it wasn't until I got pregnant, I had kids, and I started seeing even some of the really big competitors who have kids. You'd see them, I know you've seen them on social media, where they're in their competition bikini and their heels and they're posing and their kids are in the background. And to me, that honestly, it seemed really weird because
Hmm.
I'm like, I I stutter here because there is something so powerful about seeing your parents be so dedicated and so all in with their passion. And I love that. That is not what I am saying here, but it was the hypersexualization. It was the in conjunction with, oh, my kids see me in my bikini. That's not like that. That's not weird. A body is a body. You sexualize the body if you choose to,
Hmm.
but it's like those same women would be a part of these insanely over sexualized photo shoots. And I'm like, your kids are seeing those images and it's borderline pornography to me. And I remember, so when I earned my pro card, I got second place and I was so grateful. And the reason why was because I didn't have to get invited to the first place photo shoot after the
Hmm.
competition. I don't know if a lot of the listeners are familiar with that, but when you take first place at a national show, they take all of the first place competitors and they do this very sexualized photo shoot. And to me, I've seen all those pictures and I have such wonderful empathy and such respect for what goes into building a professional physique. It is insane, the lifestyle. I lived it. I see people in the coaching industry like I I I respect it. But there is then another level of competing that when people look a certain way, you get tons of compliments from people who are watching, not only on social media, but the people who see you on a regular basis, your family members. You're like, oh my gosh, you are shredded. You look amazing. Oh my gosh, what do you eat? What is your training regimen? And people are like idolizing your body because it's freaking extreme, right? And it's like, it's no wonder you get the attention, right? And so you're getting this attention that not only gets you thinking, you're like, oh, wow, I really do look good. And let's be real, you do look good, right? But then there's the additional layer of hypersexuality, of pornography amongst viewing in a society where when women look a certain way, people tend to hypersexualize women visually, right? And then not only that, it's taking it a next level. And it's like, oh, well, let's do photo shoots. Let's take some pictures and let's put you in these super sexualized poses that make you feel sexy, that make you feel confident. But in reality, you're not healthy and you're not in a healthy place. Then you're getting all of this positive feedback from people saying you look amazing, but you're not healthy. Oh my gosh, you look so sexy, but it's not sustainable. And then when you go into the off season, you feel less sexy, you don't get as many compliments. And it really started to set in where I'm like, wow, this is twisted. How did I miss this? This is so twisted. I'm like, I'm getting all these positive feedback, but I'm not healthy. And anyway, I just went into the whole spiel, but tell me your thoughts on that, Celeste. Like, am I alone in
Um,
in that?
I don't think you're alone in that. So, I see, this is where I have maybe a slightly different perspective.
Okay, fill me in. I'm so open.
So, my slightly different perspective is that I believe that those feedback loops are going to happen no matter what and what you're involved in, what you're putting your effort into. Generally, if something extreme is achieved or success is achieved, it's going to be revered, you could say. So, where I think there's a difference is it's if a competitor can learn to put their identity in Christ or their identity in something values based, they'll be less likely to fall victim to some of those traps or patterns, or I have to be this way in order to gain status, let's say, or gain worldly attention. So that's the only place where I kind of differ because I'm not anti doing the photo shoot, but I am anti doing a photo shoot that promotes something outside of those values or leads people to see competing in a way that isn't really fully representative of a disciplined, focused, empowered woman who's going after these goals. And I'm not for the extreme fixation on a physique that's unsustainable. And so it's up to us as competitors. I believe there's a personal responsibility there. And that's really what the Build More Than Just a Body Work I do is about. Like, I help to equip women with that personal responsibility of saying, okay, I recognize where I'm attaching too much of myself to this. But we can't deny that there's risk. There's red flags with bodybuilding. And I think if bodybuilding came with a warning label, the things that you listed would be on it. So, warning, side effects may include hyperfixation on your body, connecting food relationship or what you eat to how you look, feeling like you're more valuable when people are complimenting you, feeling like you have to do what all these people are doing because you see them getting validated. We can't deny from a psychological perspective that women engage more with social comparison than men. So if a woman is seeing another woman receive positive reinforce, positive support, positive whatever, attention, opportunities, sponsorships, more gain in their career, then the woman who sees that and witnesses that is more likely to replicate or emulate what that person is doing to get there. Not necessarily because, oh, this aligns with my values, so I'm going to do it, but, oh, in order to fit into this community and receive that, I need to do X, Y, Z. So we as women have to fight that natural urge so we can have discernment. does that really align with my values? Does that really align with the identity I want to uphold? Or is that something I need to place over here and let others participate in without my participation?
I 100% agree. That was something I totally gapped and you filled so beautifully. It's a very conscious decision to go into competing, holding your morals to their current standard and not deviating from that. Because to your point, when you go into the industry, if you're new, it's like, oh, I've only done a couple of shows, or this is my first show, and you're kind of like dabbling in it. And you see the pros or you see certain competitors, you watch how they present themselves. And naturally, because you're new, you're trying to figure things out. You're like, oh, well, I need to do that. I need to do these photo shoots. I need to protrude myself in this way. It's like, oh, well, they come across so confidently because they do XYZ. I want to then try to like go into that space as well. And to your point, I do see it kind of as this lure where people can very easily deviate away from, maybe it's a relationship to God, maybe it's a high moral standard, maybe it's, whatever it is, fill in the blank. To your point, it is very individualistic. And I feel like honestly, you are an outlier where you can withhold and say with confidence, this is where my morals are, and these are my values, and I am choosing to stay true to that, right? For me, my morals say, heck no, I'm not doing
Yeah.
any photo shoots. I've done like fitness photo shoots,
Mm-hmm.
and there have been some poses that I'm like, oh my gosh, I look so good, but I can't post that
Yeah,
online, kind of a thing, right? And I'm
I
like,
get that.
because that kind of crosses the boundary. And I've seen some of your photo shoots, and again, I love and respect you so much. And that is your own thing. But then
Yeah.
again, there's people who take the photo shoots that are so beautiful that you've done and take it to another freaking level. Let's be real.
Exactly. Exactly. Like there's no denying.
Yes, no denying it. And so everyone will have their own test and boundaries for
Yeah.
what they will move from. And something that I think is super interesting that I see in a life standpoint, like not just relating to competing, but when you have a moral or a value and you deviate your actions from that, you don't feel good
Mm-mm.
at all. And whether it's like I think about this, like for example, it's February right now. Goal setting is recently on my mind with the new year, and I mean I'm a very avid goal setter. If for
Yeah.
those of you who don't know me, and goal setting to me is like really much so aligning my priorities and really saying what habits do I want to develop to become the person that I want to be. And it's really like having a self check in with myself and saying, you know what? The person that I want to be would do this. They would wake up like this. They would act like this. They would speak like this.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, I know the person who I want to become. I'm not there yet. But when my actions deviate from that, I don't feel good. And so relaying it back to the competition sense, that when you do start to deviate away from that, and I've even had my own journey. I remember in my second show, I felt the least connected to God that I have in any competition season. And I learned so much from that because I'm like, I was too tired to get on my knees, or I didn't go to my places of worship because I prioritized training instead. Or I'm like, oh, I can't do this certain church commitment because I'm competing. And because like God came second, competing was first. And I remember how I felt, and I was like, never again.
Wow. That's a really interesting point too. Like, I think the reason I'm more strong in it now is because I do know what it feels like to deviate. And it wasn't a good feeling. And I look back and I'm like, first of all, what attention did I gain? And it wasn't the attention I desired. And how did it make me feel as a person? Was it really representative of me? And I felt no, it wasn't. So it was through making those choices that I learned who I was and who I wasn't. And, I've had this conversation with other women before, and a lot of times the argument is like, well, it makes me feel confident. Like these photo shoots are for me, they make me feel good. I think there's a difference between like, doing a photo shoot or taking a photo that's very sexy because you're strong and you're radiating confidence and then the kind where you're bending over a couch with oil all over your body. Like if I'm just being totally honest, like we've all seen it. And so what I like to think about is if we want to get more women in this sport, because we genuinely maybe want to and believe that it's worthwhile, how do we attract women who are going to be positive representations of that? And I struggled in a relationship seeing a man, if you want to call him that. Yeah, lust over these types of things and create a standard that was better and put me down quite a bit for not being that. But I didn't care because I was like, I don't want to be. And then I'm like, and also if that is your cup of tea, then go drink it. Don't be with me. That's fine. And so I think everybody's got to do what they genuinely have considered thoughtfully. But I think the problem is not a lot of this is considered from a mindful and holistic perspective. It's very much impulsive or rewards based. So if we focus on the reward that we get from participating in the norms of any societal structure, then the actual fulfillment from that is generally fleeting. So if we went back to the version of you who was actively competing, like really like, I'm going to go to the Olympia, I'm like, it's my goal. Do you think there's anything you personally could have done differently to maybe prevent or change your experience and outlook that came when you were pregnant and you were seeing things maybe through a different lens?
I honestly don't think so.
Mhm.
With where my beliefs have gone with regards to health, I recognize that when I was in the heat of competing, I made a lot of rationalizations and excuses about health that I shouldn't have. And I feel like it's very common for competitors to be like, "Oh, I'm going to be stage lean. I know it's not healthy to be stage lean. I'm just going to be here for a little bit. I'm going to compete and then I'm going to get healthy again." Kind of a thing. It's like, I know what I'm doing is extreme. Don't judge me. I'm going into this territory anticipating to potentially lose my menstrual cycle, have lower sex drive, to have lower quality sleep, to mess up my hormones, to the list is it goes on, right?
Mhm.
And I know I'm going there. And so at least it was good that I could acknowledge that those were side effects that I was potentially putting upon myself, but I was a lot younger then. And something that really helped me even just build a better respect for what I potentially could have done to my
Mhm.
body was having postpartum depression with my second.
Mm.
I did not realize how intense hormonal disruption could be for both myself mentally and physically. And I was very fortunate during my competition season of life where I would compete and then I would take a very significant off season of maybe 5 to 10 months of an off season to build, because I'd see my pictures, I'd get my placing, I get my feedback from the judges, and I knew what I needed to work on. I didn't ever feel I'm there and I need to continuously compete back to back to back and stay stage lean for a very significant amount of time. And so I feel like I kind of went into this battle or this war of competing, and came out with only a few bumps and bruises, whereas I know a lot of people get really messed up. Like I didn't walk away with an eating disorder. I didn't walk away with long-term hormonal issues, though I could argue that maybe some of what I experienced after my second was because of competing, you never know. I had two kids under 2 years, and having the pregnancies pulling all of my minerals and everything that I needed for my body, I feel like that had a lot more to do with it than competing did, for sure.
Mhm.
But I even just look back at my mental health after my last show and hopping right into pregnancy and watching my body transform. I mean, I gained 35 pounds in my first pregnancy, which
Mhm.
is so healthy. And for
Mhm.
me, I was at a very healthy weight. And how that was kind of hard after just coming from being stage lean, and then I gained 35 pounds of healthy pregnancy weight. And literally 2 weeks before that baby was born, my first, I was deadlifting 225 pounds. Like I was lifting, I
Awesome.
was so strong, like it felt so good. But there's again like that mental aspect, the weight stigma, the things that you kind of hold on to competing with, like body dysmorphia and things like that. So anyway, pregnancy has taught me a lot about what side effects could have come from or could have come from competing, what did come from it. We will all go through different experiences and then take from it what we can, apply it to where we can for our life. And to me, it just like amplified during pregnancy and motherhood. And those, just the conversations that we've talked about, just it has evolved over time, because to your point where this original conversation started, it's like this 2020 version of Shayla didn't know because she hadn't experienced the things that now I have experienced, if that makes sense.
For sure. Oh yeah, definitely. That's a great way of putting it. I think if what's interesting is me being 6.5 weeks out, being in a place where I'm like, I'm pushing it. I don't want to, you know what I mean? It's so interesting because I know that I am a person who says, well, it's gonna be this long of a period of time and then I'll be fine. But it's fascinating you bring this up because part of my resistance to doing this prep was that it was I don't really like my body super stage lean. I prefer how I feel and function in improvement seasons. It's more natural of a lifestyle, it's very fitting, flexible, that kind of stuff. Um, so there was some resistance to that. And so I totally understand where you're coming from. And it has begged a lot of personal insight or development from me to look at that and go, what's been driving that? And I think part of that's like standards and criteria has changed and extremes are very predictable, which make them attractive. Oh, well, if I cut this food and do this cardio, I'm for sure gonna, but it also means other things could happen. But because those things are maybe then we might be more likely to take that risk, especially depending on our age or our life circumstances.
Mhm.
That risk might not seem as risky, or it might not
Can
be
I
as big of
add
a
to
deal.
that?
Yeah,
Adding like PEDs, steroids, like any sort of performance enhancing drugs could totally be lumped in that category because it is extremely appealing, right? To
exactly.
shorten down. Anyway, I just wanted to add that to that list because again,
Yeah.
that's something that a lot of people that might fall out of their moral standard, but it might become incredibly enticing as they continue to compete. They're like, oh, my coach keeps asking me about this. Oh, people say, oh, well, if you would just take these supplements, you could really take it to the next level in a much shorter amount of time, and not considering what that could do to you long term. And it's like, oh, well, studies are, it could happen, it might not happen, and oh, but you're taking a low dose, like just a lot of rationalizations and things like that.
Mm.
Again, those types of things are very individualistic. You can probably hint at my opinion on those, which I'm like, I personally am anti. If it's your cup of tea, it's like, as long as you know the risks and as long as you are okay with that, I support you, because I am a very pro agency, pro you do you, as long as you feel good about it and it, again, syncs with your morals, you do it.
Yeah, see, and I don't disagree with you there at all. I think that for some people, that's the life that they really want and they really
Hmm.
desire. And I've come to realize that a bodybuilding, it really isn't for everybody. And I used to say it was. And maybe a small part of me still believes it is, but not the side of it where you're top five in the Olympia. That side I don't think is for everybody at all because of what's required for that. Now, I'm still a promoter and advocate for competing. I have seen a massive impact on my life for the better as a result of it. Now, what I always challenge myself with and others with is, do you have to compete to gain that same impact, right? Do you have to push yourself to that level in this to get that? Now, pretty much anything we take to an extreme is going to challenge us in some way and potentially put us at risk. And I think a lot of the times it's a worthy endeavor. But I think when it starts to add too much distress or take away from what matters in your life, or it gets put on a pedestal like you had experienced in that second bodybuilding prep, I think that's when it starts to become really problematic. And it's always important to be willing to reflect on what it is that you're doing and why you're doing it. Like I can look right now and go, okay, my choice to compete is rooted in X, Y, and Z. And I am excited about that. I'm eager for it. Like I'm so excited to get back on stage. I feel like I this is the best prep I've ever had. I'm very healthy right now too, actually, which is wonderful. Like still have my menstrual cycle. My last prep, I kept my menstrual cycle all the way through until the 1 month post show, and then it was back. So things have gone really, really well. I've remained a natural athlete. Like I'm in a solid groove, and now my food is way higher than it was last time I was this way. Now,
Awesome.
thank you. And I can also logically go, ain't no way I'd do this forever. Some people are like, oh, I could maintain this, but I'm like, not me. I'm fighting for my life to get to this level of leanness. You know what I'm saying? I'm not doing that forever. No, thank you. Um, but I still see the utility of it. And so it's so fascinating to me because I wonder how I'll feel in 3 years, 5 years when I'm done or I have children. And like right now, I have a 12-year-old stepson. And I remember watching the reel during the Olympia, like watching the updates from Gilco Productions, and he was sitting behind me. And so was his cousin and his other cousin. So my husband's nephews. And he goes, that's weird. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, I'm curious. You're like, what do you mean? He's like they're in like underwear basically, like he's like you're looking at these people's bodies like it's weird. And then I was like okay, like you look at it and you think this is weird because you've been maybe taught to believe that someone in this type of outfit is to be sexualized. I was like, when I look at it, this is what I see. And I pointed out like the muscles and the fullness and the conditioning, and but I also can't argue with the fact that the bikinis are very small, And so I'm like, this is really great. He gets to see women in a light that's not over sexualizing them, even though they're in this outfit. And so it was an opportunity to pause and teach that. But I think there's there's so many elements of competing that can be gained in other areas of life. So I want to hear from you. How have you tapped into that competitive nature of yourself and that challenge yourself side of you that obviously was so strong and and still engage with it since stepping away from competing?
There are so many aspects of competing that totally transfer into everyday life. And one thing is setting a goal, you set a deadline, you go all in. And it's not just the moments of like, oh, I'm going to go get this workout in. It's like, I'm going to get my sleep. I'm going to take my creatine. I'm going to hit my protein. I'm going to track all of my nutrients. I'm going to be sure that I'm getting my water. It's like it becomes a lifestyle. And I believe you cannot succeed in the competition life without enjoying the lifestyle because you're on stage for minutes, right?
Totally.
There are so many people where, to your point, competing is not for everyone, I would argue. And because the lifestyle sounds miserable to a lot of people.
Mm.
And to me, when I was in the middle of it, I loved it and it was great and it was so fun. And so whether you're running a marathon and you're like, I gotta go bust out 20 miles today, like that sounds miserable to me. That's not my lifestyle. I don't want to do that, right?
Yeah.
But I believe that training and running a marathon would totally change your life, right? If that's
Yeah.
grit that you want to channel in that direction, right? And for me, because I love performing, I love seeing my body change. I'm fascinated with evidence-based fitness and nutrition, that the lifestyle of competing was so fascinating. And I just like, oh, I just loved it. It was so,
Yeah.
and so translating that now into everyday life, I mean, setting a goal like starting my kids' YouTube channel and being like, I'm going all in. It's like this video got like no views, but I'm gonna do it again and like let's do
Love
it
that.
better this time. And it's like, oh, and this did really good. And just being able to adapt and pivot and not get so sucked into the gratification that comes immediately. Because, for example, when you're competing and you're in that prep, I mean, you're 6 weeks out, it's a grind and you can't make it to the stage unless you have pushed through that grind. So there is like, it's grit and it's the muscle memory of grit that then applies to other things in your life. Learning how food changes your body is so incredible. Like learning about macronutrients, learning about micronutrients and what sleep does and recovery and training and just how these things change your body is so cool. Like I
Mm.
just have such mad respect for being able to change your body because people will be like, "Oh, well, I want to lose weight, so I'll just hop on Ozempic." And or I want to do this, so I'll just like trying to find quick fixes, And to me, fitness and nutrition, health, it's rooted in the things that are kind of boring and the things that take grit and persistence. And to me, it's like there is no replacement for that. And so to me, being able to experience competing and understanding what it takes to change my body has been absolute game changer. I think about like postpartum with my first, I looked in the mirror and I was just like, oh my gosh, like not only is my body incredible, but like, hey, I kind of look fat. Okay, what I'm going to do is I am going to lose all my postpartum
Mm.
baby weight. And I knew how to do it. And I did it in like 17 weeks, like super, I feel like that was super fast. Like just, and I was able to because my baby was amazing. She slept through the night super quick. My hormones were not out of whack. My work situation made it such where like I could go back into basically prep mode after I had my baby
Mm.
and lose my postpartum baby weight. And that was really fulfilling to me. It was also like now that I've been down this road now for my third time, I see that I would do it. I definitely am doing it different. I did it for
Interesting.
my second. And what happened with my second, which I referenced how I had postpartum depression, I maybe lifted weights once or twice a week for a year postpartum or whatever, maybe 3 times a week or whatever on occasion. But I didn't even try to lose weight until I was maybe 10, 11, 12 months postpartum. And I remember I would look in the mirror and I had such a more realistic perspective. I'm like, I'm only lifting once or twice a week. I'm not eating enough protein. I'm in survival mode. I feel like complete crap. My hormones are out of whack. I'm more depressed than I've ever been in my entire life. I don't feel like answering phone calls because I'm so sad. I don't want to talk to anybody because if you ask me how I am, I'm just going to start crying. And so it's like I look in the mirror and it's like I'm overweight. And it's like, yeah, you are. But like, what do you expect? It's like your body is going through a crazy change right now. Like, you can't expect to look lean or crazy. Like, I just accepted who I was in like such a beautiful way. And I
Mm.
really don't think that being so close to competing after having my first, I could look at myself and value myself saying, you just built life, created life. Give yourself a break. Like, you need sleep, girlfriend. Like, no, go take a shower. You haven't showered in a week.
Yeah.
Like, skip your workout, friend. Like, taking care of yourself and feeling healthy should never come at the expense of what you look like. And to me, my priorities were a little bit switched after my first. So then after my second, I just feel like I had such a more realistic perspective.
Mm.
I'm like, just you're amazing. Like I look bigger than I ever have, but I am so proud of you. Like you are grinding right now. And I feel like I just had such this realistic perspective. And so now going into my third, I have never felt so healthy. Like my hormones, even being this close to delivery, like the amount of focus that my midwives have me on right now for my nutrition, for my activity level, I feel so good. And I've never felt like that ever because I've never paid such attention to my health
Mm.
and less about what I look like. Like I haven't stepped on a scale this entire pregnancy. I wasn't one that had this big emotional tie to how much I weighed, but it's like I have zero need. I don't know how much weight I've gained. It's probably close to 30 pounds at this point. I just feel so good mentally. And like if I had to compare it to like a machine, my gears are greased in the best way. Like I am so efficient. I waddle everywhere I go because this baby is so freaking low. But I feel so good. And I'm going into this postpartum experience expecting to have my baby pooch for a long time because my uterus is going to be huge because I just grew almost an 8-pound baby. Let's be real. And it's going to take a long time for that to come back. And so I'm so grateful for the experiences now going through this for a third time to have such a realistic perspective that I can look in the mirror. Even now, a couple days ago, completely vulnerable right here with you, Celeste,
Mhm.
standing in my mirror completely butt naked,
Mhm.
almost in tears with how grateful I am for my body. I'm
Oh.
like, how? I'm like, there is a basketball baby like this. My belly is so big and it is so beautiful. I'm like, there is my child in there.
Oh.
And like, and that, I walked into our kitchen completely butt naked and I stand in front of my husband and I'm like, Brian, look at this. I'm like, look at my body. I'm like, I'm so grateful I'm building our baby right now. Like, is this not crazy? I'm like, this is crazy. And he's like, it's amazing. And like, we just had like this moment
Mm.
of like such appreciation. And I feel like I can have that appreciation now because I know what it's like to love my 4-year-old and my 3-year-old because I have like your life just like expands your capacity to love your this unconditional love and this like mama bear mentality. It's like I would do anything for my kids. And even my husband talk about how sometimes we don't think that unconditional love exists even in a marriage because there are contingencies that could turn you from each other, whether it's
Mm.
immorality, whether it's like you could do something, you could go like murder someone and I could cut off love from my husband, kind of a thing. He could do
Oh.
something that could make me not love him. A child, I really don't think that there is a single thing that my child could do that would make me not love them. I would be so incredibly disappointed, but like that unconditional love of a child changes you as a person, as a woman. And experiencing that has just it's changed my life. It's changed my course of competing. It's changed my perspective in what I want to do professionally. It's changed the way that I see my body. When I see women, I see such respect. And which is why, again, going back to the whole hypersexualization thing, when I see people hypersexualizing their body, I'm like, you are so much more than what you look like. You are
Mm.
so much more than how you are acting or how you're treating yourself. It's like you are a gift from God. You can create life and you're a mom. And it's like people undermine moms all the time. Like I remember transitioning from the corporate world. We've been entrepreneurs now for 2, maybe going on 3 years. And I remember being like, people are like, oh, what do you do for work? And I remember when I was in the corporate setting, it's like, oh, I am in sales. I have this such and such title. I am so amazing. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like now it's like, yes, it's like I have a business and me and my husband are entrepreneurs together, but I am a mom and that is like the best title, the best role. Like I feel so much pride in saying I'm a mom. And it's so sad to me that society undermines, like, oh, you're a stay at home mom. I'm just a stay at home mom. I just have two kids. Heck no. It's like, no, that is everything. Everything.
I got chills. That's so beautiful, Shayla.
I just went hard. You
Oh,
hit
no.
a trigger button on me on that one. I went
I'm so
hard.
glad you
So many
did.
topics. That's a lot to unpack.
No, it's amazing. Like, I'm so glad you did because the way that you describe your pregnancy and being a mom is like something I've always craved for my life. Like, it's what I desire most to experience. And I think maybe that's part of why there's such an intense focus and drive in competing too. It's like, well, that's what I'm putting this energy towards and into. And I think that there's so much value we get from competing. Like you said, you learn how to do something that most of the population cannot do, which is prioritize their health and take care of their body and know how to change it when it needs to be changed and understand what their needs are. Now, then there's this other side of it where in your first pregnancy, the mindset of I've got to get the weight off, I've got to get the weight off. Although it came naturally and easily because of what you knew, there was this lack of real connection and gratitude to your body that you now experience, which is one that fosters patience, compassion, understanding, and allows you to apply what you know from nutrition and fitness in a more um, understanding and spiritual way versus a well, I've got to do it. I've got to look this way. Otherwise, is what that means about me. And it's amazing to me that even with your struggle with the postpartum depression that you faced, I mean, for one, that you wanted to have more kids after that, because I know for some women that makes it really, really scary to consider having more children after they experience postpartum depression, but also that you still found ways to care for yourself. I think that speaks volumes too to the making health more of like second nature or first nature, where you've done it for so long that like, okay, well, I feel this way, but I need to eat something because I know food is good and nourishes me and helps me perform. But how did you navigate that experience of postpartum depression and seeing your body change and trying to now decide or decipher like what's realistic for me to commit to? Because I know when I'm just depressed in general, I'm like, I'm not in a good place to make decisions. I don't really trust my decision making in those phases. So, how did you know like that what you were committing to was actually more beneficial?
That's a really good question. For me, it was such a long journey and not something that happened overnight. I mean, I cried multiple times a day for months. It was absolutely ridiculous. I honestly remember going through spurts, weeks without smiling. And I don't know if you know me, but I freaking love to smile, like
Yeah.
being bubbly and energetic. Like that is Shayla. And I remember my family being like, "Are you okay? Like, you just are not you. Like, something is up, something is wrong." And I was meeting with a therapist at that time. I've never done therapy in my life except for during that little burst.
Mhm.
Um, I started meeting with a therapist and got a lot of really good emotional help. I've always been a super big journal writer. Like, that's a huge passion of mine. I love journaling. And my therapist recommended to write down just positive things, right? I mean, a gratitude journal, it sounds so cliche and so stupid because people talk about, oh, how, oh, wonderful this is. And you're like, oh, I could do that. But like most people don't, right?
Mhm.
But I remember when my therapist told me to do it, I sat in front of my phone with my journal because it's just an electronic phone. Or not an electronic phone, duh, the phone is electronic. The the journal is
For
on my
some
phone.
reason, I followed that anyways.
And I remember staring at my screen for minutes and I just started to cry because the only thing that I could write on my list was that I did my hair today. I couldn't think of another single positive thing about myself. I couldn't say anything positive, which kills my soul because I'm like, Shay, like you have so much to offer. And if that's how low you are, and the only thing you can think of is I did my hair today, that's the best that I did, and I can't think of anything else, is like, you're in a pretty bad spot. And being able to like separate myself and say, this is not who you are, recognize that like mentally I'm not in a good spot. Um, I know some people, when they have depression, doing pharmaceuticals is something that is essential for them. For me, my midwife had me take St. John's wort, which is an herb that helped me so much during my pregnancy because I got the postpartum. It was actually prenatal depression at 20 weeks and it extended through almost a year postpartum. And so taking St. John's wort was really, really helpful. I remember when I would try to wean off of it, I would just like, I was out of control. So it kept me pretty stable. So that was like something else that really helped me. I got blood work done. I did a hair tissue mineral analysis done, which is an HTMA. I don't know if many people know what that is, but you basically cut parts of your hair from like the back section of it, a pretty decent amount, like in small chunks. So it doesn't, you're not like balding in like one huge spot, but you send your hair in and they can analyze your minerals and your stress and like so many and like heavy metals and so many things that are in your hair from like a 2 to 3, don't quote me on this, but like a couple month stretch because your hair grows and it can tell you a lot about your health based on your hair. And so it was like a big combination thing where I did like a saliva test a couple times a day. I did blood work a couple times because blood work is just right now, right? But your hair, the HTMA, that can give you months of data.
Mm.
And then hopping on the phone with a nurse practitioner and being able to have her analyze my data, like, dude, you need help. Like, we need to
Yeah.
get you on some, like, you need to be supplementing in this. Like, every single one of your vitamins and minerals is either way too high or it's way too low. I think I had like one that was in the normal range. And so hearing from somebody else, even though I was a nutritionist, I can't take care of myself when the only thing I can think positive about myself is I did my hair today, right? You can't
Yeah.
feed yourself adequately. And so being able to hear from a professional and paying to have that done to say you need to add this, you need to do this and this and this, and instead of supplementing, it was really important for me that I just changed my diet because I knew my diet was crap at the time. And so just knowing that I feel like crap because I'm not nourishing my body the way that I should, also being compassionate with my body and myself because I'm like, my son sleeps like crap. And
Mm.
so I'm going to sleep like crap. And it's like, it's okay. You're doing your best. If you can take a nap, take a nap. It's like the dishes don't need to be done. Go rest, just like having that compassionate outlook. So having professionals help me out, having friends and family reach out, even though I likely didn't answer their phone calls because I was in such a bad place, but it just took a really long time, baby steps that then allowed me to build and then have such a wonderful perspective when I could start smiling again, being able to reflect back on my journal and
Mhm.
say, I came from such a low rock bottom place and seeing where I am now, it's like the sky is the limit now. And then, like, once things started to open up, I feel like I just have such a more compassionate outlook because of where I've been. It sometimes takes you to go through something really hard in order for you to build such respect for health. And I feel like that experience in general even amplified my decision to not compete anymore because I'm like, people get hormonal issues from competing. And
Mhm.
I dodged that bullet miraculously from that severe of a standpoint. And it's like, how can I advocate for that anymore? because I just can't, because health is so important. You could have 100 problems, but if you have a health problem, you have one problem, and it's your
Mm.
health. Like nothing else even comes close in comparison than your health. And it's like, why would I risk getting on stage to look a certain way when I am literally going into untreaded waters? Like I remember I did a DEXA scan before the shows that I competed in, and I was between 11 and 13% body fat for all my shows. I'm like, that is so insanely unhealthy. Like,
Yeah, so
oh my
true.
gosh, like it's crazy. I'm like, how I'm like, I feel so grateful to have taken such a positive perspective from competing, because I'm like, I feel like I could have wrecked my bone density having osteoporosis in my family, or like I had thyroid cancer. I have a half a thyroid that is running my entire hormonal system for my thyroid. And it's like, I just feel like I skimped. I like dodged the bullet. And I'm so grateful, because I just feel like health is our number one priority. And that, to me, I'm gonna just make a natural segue here to my kids, because my kids, they'll like be poking each other in the eye with like a pencil or something. And I'm like, dude, Zane, how many eyes are we born with? Two. How many eyes when you die, when you're old, how many eyes do you have? Two. Those same eyes, you do not poke out an eye. No. It's like, no, you get one of those. It's like, don't you dare mess that up. It's like your body, you treat your body kind, because that same body, that's the body. Like, no, you treat your body kind. And it's like those innate, that was kind of a silly example.
No, that's really good. There's more, but I want to keep hearing what you're about to say, but that opened up some questions I had.
Yeah, go for it.
If you've ever struggled in your prep or your improvement season or any transition phase in this sport, you know how valuable it is to have that direct guidance and support, but it's so difficult to find, which is exactly why I created the on-demand mindset coaching platform for competitors. That is only $9.99 per month. How it works is you log into the system and you select what season you're in, and then you're prompted to select a struggle you're facing, and then even more specific struggles branching off of that. And at your fingertips, you will be given direct guidance and support with a PDF resource as well as video trainings. And you have tons of access to years of group coaching calls that you're more than welcome to replay and watch. And you get access to a live group coaching call every single month. So you're not only getting support at your fingertips, but you're also getting an incredible community there to support you along your journey. If this is something you're interested in learning more about and exploring, you can sign up at www.celestial.fit/on-demand and get access to this right away. There are no other join fees or cancel fees, so you can come and go as you please, and you are always welcome to be in the Build More Than Just a Body community. Well, okay, so I guess my first question is regarding what you do for kids now with your YouTube channel. Like, what is it that even inspired you to do that, and why do you think it's important?
There wasn't like a single moment that was like, this is why, but it's like I've been bantering back and forth with my husband. What can I do? Because I'm always in growth mode. I feel like my dad's an entrepreneur, all my brothers, like just growing something just feels so good to me. So I always want to be building something, which again, competing, that's something that like you're
Oh, for
always building,
sure.
and like, so I feel like that just really hit my personality really strong. But I was trying to think, I'm like, how can I tie in this immense passion for fitness and nutrition, and my immense passion for motherhood and for children? And I see in the education system, I see the failing aspects of our public health, and how the vast majority of our population is obese or overweight. And
Mhm.
the immense number of chronic health conditions, like just things are not in a good place. And I feel like it's honestly burdened on my shoulder to fix that.
Yeah.
I want to be a part of that change. And it seems like such a daunting task. And I'm like, how? how can I make such a difference? Like, I feel so passionate about that. It's like, I want to do something about it. And
Yeah.
it was one night in February that my husband and I were talking, and we're like, what about a kid's YouTube channel? And that just like exploded the idea, because I'm like, I could literally change how a child sees their body. And that could change the entire aspect of how they perceive their health for their entire life. If a child could learn from a young age, because I mean, you and me, or I have been a coach, I'm not currently, but you have clients, and we know what it's like when you're trying to change your body. Like, the amount of habits that we have that stem from childhood is insane. The way that our parents talked about food to us, how food, like how sugar was hoarded. It's like, oh, you're bad because you had two cookies. Or it's like, there's so many things that are kind of messed up in our culture about food and about fitness, where it's like, oh, you look really good. Are you on a diet?
Right.
Right? It's like there's so many things where it's like, if we can teach a child that you are so valuable, you are so loved, that you should take care of your body because you get one and it's amazing. And because you love your body and you feel that way, you should nourish it because it feels good.
Mhm.
Let's go play, and like, let's make it in a fun way.
Love
So
that.
it's like bringing fun into it. And so, sorry that I kind of segued all over there, but the long story short is, it was trying to figure out, it was like this big fluff of abyss of all these like ideas. And then bam, kids YouTube channel. And we had no idea how to do it. There's so many rules and regulations with kids
So
fitness,
many.
kids YouTube channels. It's like, how do you do that? But it's like, I don't know how to do it, but we're just going to start taking baby steps to get there. Like, I don't need to have that all figured out, because we'll figure it out as we go. But if I could get a massive following on a kid's YouTube channel, I could go to a public health forum. I could enter in politics. I could like go in with the food babe
I
who's
was just gonna ask you if you know the
yes,
food babe.
yes. Like
Did you
what
hear her
she is
episode on
doing.
Jordan Peterson's podcast?
Sorry, say that again.
Did you hear her episode on Jordan Peterson's podcast?
No, but I love both of them, so I bet it was amazing.
It was good, and she like really detailed like the work she's been doing, and how they even met with like the leaders, and
Yes.
they're trying to make real effective changes.
Yes. And that's what I mean. It's like, I can't at this, like, hi, I'm Shayla. I'm a mom of almost three. I'm a certified nutritionist. I'm an IFBB pro. Change the school system. It's like, that doesn't work. But if you can have an army of kids where you can like change people's lives, like the food babe, how she's grown like so many petitions, and being able to go like with people behind her because she has such a powerful and moving stance, like you can make change at that point. And I'm like, for me, this is like a lifelong journey where it's like, it's starting with the kids YouTube channel. I want to change the way that kids see their bodies, make it positive. I want to change the way that they see food, that it's fuel, that carbohydrates give you energy, that protein makes you strong, that fats like make your brain and your heart, like in your body, like function optimally in your hormones. And it's like, I want to teach kids this and make it natural and normal and make it playful and fun, and then build like a community that then can change the world. And that sounds so ambitious and so intense, because
Mhm.
I don't know that that's going to happen in a couple of years. It could be 10, but it's like, that is the vision where I literally feel called to change and advocate for our kids, because they're innocent. They do not
Yeah.
have a voice, and I want to be a voice for our kids and for our public health system. But it's going to take having support, like a kids YouTube channel. By the way, speaking of support, the kids YouTube channel is Kid Hub Fit, all one word, KID, Kid Hub. My last name is Hubbard, also the hub for fitness and nutrition, making it fun for kids, right? So Kid Hub Fit, all one word. And it's on YouTube. We just started in October. But it's like, if we can get an army of kids like that actually understand how important their health is, our society could be so much better.
Well, I mean, I see how much generations have changed as far as what they consume, from like a news standpoint or information standpoint. And that's then leads us to believe you can change the way people consume when it comes to food or the way that they talk about their bodies. I mean, we even saw the major influence of like the body positivity movement and how that went to an unhealthy extreme, unfortunately. It promoted a lot of self-abuse instead of self-love, and self-love being an action of nourishment and movement. Now, my question for you is, I see a lot of children who maybe in their early years, they're moving, they're playing, they're having fun. But then sports comes into play, and maybe they don't like sports. Maybe they're not a sporty kid, and they start to feel this obstinance towards movement because, well, I don't fit in with the athletic kids. I don't fit in with the sporty crowd. So, how do you encourage or support a child who is so like, no, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it because it's too much reminding them of a sport engagement? How do you get them engaged in active and healthier habits?
I love that question. And I feel like a lot of what we talked about a little bit earlier when it comes to our morals and the way that we think about ourselves or we think about a bigger picture and how that can drive our decisions. Because if you can have that child have a basis and understanding, if they can believe I am important, my body is beautiful, my body is important, so I should take care of it, naturally, it's like, oh, I know that movement is so good. I know that food and nutrition, like it changes the way that my body feels. So by having those underlying by having that underlying understanding, if they say, "Oh, well, basketball's not for me, but I know movement's important. So what can I like? What about racquetball? What about pickleball? What about golf? What about just walking outside or going to the playground or like just helping them think outside the box. Like you don't have to fit in. Like, so what? You don't like basketball? Like, and all the kids in your neighborhood like basketball. It's like you're worthy, you're amazing, your body's awesome. Like, let's find something else. Like physical activity is not limited to sports. Like you could get into hiking, right? You could get
Right.
into canoeing, you could get into swimming, you know, like there's a million options for physical activity. And I feel like if we could just teach a kid to base those decisions or teach parents rather to instill in their kids that, hey, teach your kid to want to treat their body kind and start with you, parent, you know, like treat your body well and your kids will learn from that.
This might it might change gears too much. So if you want to go back to what we were just talking about, we can. But what it makes me think of is how much hedonism is driving decisions. I want to eat the food that tastes really good. I want to do the things that feel good. I want to just relax and not have to do this stuff. And I think that that then is fed to the children, because parents have adapted over time to a more pleasure-based lifestyle that then the kids get roped into it in some way, shape, or form. How then do you convince a parent who doesn't even see themselves as worthy of, because that's really an epidemic, right? We were just talking about how
Yeah.
most people are obese in America. So we're already looking at a battle against most parents not treating themselves well. Now, what's interesting is some of those parents actually, because they don't feel good, they want to implement healthier habits for their children. But then it can become like a do as I say, not as I do situation.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on all of that?
I have so many, so
Okay.
many, so many amazing. I love your question. It's so good. There's so much to unpack with it. I'll try to be super simple and like very concise with it. The first thing that came to my mind was when we were talking about us coaching, it's hard to get a parent to change, right?
Mhm.
And sometimes it's hard to get up to basically teach a parent. So, for example, through my kids' YouTube channel, if they're like, oh, I'm not healthy, but I want to be and I want my kids to be healthy, I'm going to show my kids Kid Hub Fit when they do screen time, right? For example, it's
Mm-hmm.
like a parent making a decision to hopefully instill something better for their child that maybe they didn't get. And I can teach the parents vicariously through the kids because the parents hopefully are listening, right?
Yeah.
And teaching things to their kids. Something that I do with my kids that I love and recently didn't realize what a big impact this would make is teaching my kids that their mind and their body are separate. They're together, right? It's their
Mm-hmm.
thing. But if you think about it, like kind of like what you were just alluding to, we're very pleasure based. It's like it tastes good. Like you're not bad for liking cookies because they're freaking good. I love ice cream. That's like my favorite dessert, right? Especially with like chocolate cake with the cream cheese frosting. Like, oh, it's so good. And teaching our kids, and it starts with the way that we're talking about it. It's like it's so good. Like validate it. It's like, yes, this is so good. How does our body feel when we have too much? It doesn't feel very good. Our tummies can feel super grumpy. How do we feel if we just have candy all by itself? Like after Halloween, it's like, how do we feel? Like, let's try it. Like, you want some candy? Yeah, I do. Like, how do we feel? Oh, I feel grumpy. And then they're crying and they're screaming and they're having this like crazy temper tantrum. And it's like, I know that they just had a huge blood sugar high and a huge crash. And we talk about it. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
how did our bodies feel? It didn't feel good. Did we feel like playing? No. Did we feel like crying? Yeah. Did I feel like hitting my brother? Yeah. And it's like tying it in the foods that we eat to our behavior and how it makes us feel is a monumental for our kids and even for adults to understand. And so, like my kids, they'll ask me, they're like, "Hey, mom, can I have a piece of candy?" And I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely. What do you want to eat it with?" And they're like, "I want it with string cheese." I'm like, "That's great. Why did you want to pair it with string cheese?" Because it has protein and fat, and that will help me have better energy, and that'll help me so that my belly feels nice. What happens if you eat that candy all by itself? My tummy's going to feel a little bit grumpy. Absolutely. And so they know that that if they want a treat, they're like, "Hey mom, can I have a cookie if I have it with some beef jerky?" Absolutely. Right?
So
So they're
funny.
learning those things, which is so fun. And two, on another level, is I talk about, I've kind of alluded to this and then ran away, so I'm bringing it back.
Okay.
But talking about our mind and our body is different
Mm-hmm.
because our tummy might want something, healthy food, but our mind might say, "I want cookies," or "I want unhealthy food. I want to eat too much." And so having a very different distinction. So I don't ever say, "Are you hungry?" It's like, "Is your body hungry?"
Mm.
Talking about their body separately from them as an entire entity because what they want and what they need is different. Like one example that's away from food is my daughter had this crazy habit. We had a babysitter and myself who bites their nails a lot. And she learned to bite her nails. And it's been this struggle to try to get her to stop. And I'm like, "Honey, I need to tell you something. When you put your fingers in your mouth, your mind is going to say, bite your fingernails. And I want you to know that your body, it doesn't want to bleed. It doesn't want to get you sick. It like, and to like basically just talking her through it. So now how we're breaking that habit and that cycle is I'm telling her, I'm like, "Okay, so when you tell your, like when you go to put your fingers in your mouth, you say, mind, tell your body, stop it because my body wants to, but mind, I'm telling you no." And so like she's learning that. I don't know that I
I
verbalized that,
followed that.
but you can follow the idea.
Mm-hmm.
And so now as she's clipping her fingernails, she's like, "Mom, guess what? My body really wanted to bite my nails, but I told my body no, I'm going to clip them instead." And I'm like, "Yes."
Wow.
I'm like, "Go for it, girlfriend." I'm like, "That's
That's
amazing."
awesome.
And so just like treating your body and your mind, acknowledging that they're separate, they want different things, teaching regulation for the things that you want versus what you need, and teaching all of that, not only to my kids, but through the kids' YouTube channel. Hopefully, I answered your question. We ran all over the place.
No, it was so good. You know what it actually makes me think of like emotional eating too, how preventative that can be for it because it helps you to learn to self-soothe outside of using external coping mechanisms like food or as you get older, drinking or drugs or relationships. And I think by explaining that difference in what your mind could be telling you versus what your body is telling you can really help to decipher between where is this really coming from. And that just offers a moment of pause. And if we can have more moments of pause and slow down, we'll be more likely to make mindful decisions. And when we engage in mindfulness-based eating practices, we're working the same part of our brain that does any sort of mindfulness, does any sort of inhibition control essentially. So it's actually a great tool for overall neurological development because if we use it mindfulness-based eating, we're actually teaching ourselves how to regulate in other ways. And what a great way of doing that because we eat so frequently to keep our bodies going, keep ourselves alive, keep ourselves functioning at a high level. So I think what you're doing is invaluable and it's something that's very needed. And I'm glad to hear your goals for the channel. I'm glad to hear how you're doing it. I think it's wonderful. And I really hope that others listening will follow, subscribe, and like show their kids. It also reminds me of like, I remember as a kid, I would love playing like Jumpstart. And I learned so much, because it
Okay,
was
hold on.
fun.
Jumpstart. Fill me in.
It was like, how do I explain it? It was like this board thing, but it had games that you could play that were like mental brain games, like they were
Okay.
learning games, learning activities.
Okay.
But it felt like I was just playing, but it was really like a game. And so I think the same is true. Like if you're watching, I mean, this is like most successful kids shows. Like let's look at like Dora the Explorer, you're maybe figuring out like, okay, let's resolve this conflict. Let's solve a problem. Let's figure a way through this. And like Blue's Clues, like, okay, context clues. What does this mean? What is this? That's like essentially like you could be feeding your child something like that for fitness. And so I think that you're doing a great job of that. And I don't want to breeze over that, but because of time, I do want to talk about just natural birth experiences if you're okay with that. If you have
Yes.
anything else you wanted to expand on though.
The only thing with the kids YouTube channel is I just appreciate not only the opportunity to talk about it, but just the support. Any I mean, we're trying so hard. We've got a couple of members on our team, employee wise, to try to make it so that we can, crank out the content, make it super high quality. It's just getting the word out there. So if there's anything anyone can do, whether it's sharing on their story or like showing it to your kids, I'd love feedback. Like you reach out to me on Instagram and however you want to get a hold of me. I mean, we're on all the social media platforms. YouTube makes it a little tricky because we can't comment on a kid's
Yeah.
channel, which is very interesting. So we're trying to build our community on Instagram, which is super small, but it's I'm not stopping, right?
Yeah.
The size, like it's not slowing us down. And so if you can subscribe, if you can show your kids, we don't do a ton of screen time in our house, but when we do, we try to make it low stim. We try to do educational videos. We try to do it in shorter bursts, and we want it to be high moral. We want it to be family focused. And so I don't like all these flashy cartoons. And there's even like a lot of kids channels right now that are like talking about like, let's do ice cream. Let's like hyper focus on like all these unhealthy foods because that's what kids love, or
Mm.
like glamorizing things that I don't think are beneficial. So
Yeah.
I try in my screen time to not only show the kids the things that I advocate for, but those are the types of things that you will find at Kid Hub Fit. And so any support is so grateful. So I just wanted to say thank you. If you do choose to subscribe and find value from it, that's my last thing that I'll say about Kid Hub Fit.
Really quick, what's the age range you would say your market is geared towards?
Good question. Around 2 or 3 is probably the youngest. Oldest is probably around 9. It's me and my kids that are in the videos, and my kids are 4 and 3. But I feel like if your kid's like Blippy, for example, it's very like much so like Blippy. If Yeah, we'll just leave it at that. So
Okay.
around like 3 to 9.
Awesome. My nephew's two, almost two. I
That's
shouldn't say
great.
he is. I don't want to speed up time. He'll be two this summer. Um, so I want to talk about your natural birth experiences, how you prepare for a natural birth experience, and how it's affected. I mean, we've already talked a bit about how it's influenced your view of yourself and your body, but how did you decide to do a natural birth experience? And how did it make you see yourself and women differently?
I honestly don't know where it started. Maybe it's a sense of control of myself. I know that in a hospital setting, I delivered my first in the hospital unmedicated. My second, my son, I delivered him in a birth center unmedicated. And now for my third, I'm doing home birth, and I'm so excited about that experience. And so I've only had, like, I feel like I have a really cool breadth of experience, and I've kind of trickled more into the natural aspect of birth the more kids I have. And it is so empowering to me how God gave women this innate and miraculous capability to birth. Like, I feel like that's honestly where it started, where people will talk about birth and it's fearful or they're afraid. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense to me,
Mm,
because we were put on this earth to have a family and to have kids. Like, why should it be this crazy, intense, like medical emergency event? I mean, there are different circumstances that would make it so that, like, that complications can happen, which is amazing that we have medical systems in place to help in those situations. But generally speaking, when women are healthy and they have a healthy pregnancy, if they are given the tools and they feel empowered about their body, about their birth, about their body's ability to give birth, it can be miraculous. And a lot of the times in the hospital, and even when I experienced with my first, it's like, oh, it hurts, let me give you some medication. Or, oh, this is taking too long, oh, this is a little intense, let's intervene. And
mm,
to me, I resonate a lot more with the vibe of, oh, this hurts, let's switch positions. Like, what works best for your body? Like, something hurts, we need to help move your body in a certain way that will help progress baby down more, or that will help you dilate. And how contractions work, they're freaking intense, but it's not like getting your arm cut off. Like, there is a really big difference between pain and intensity. And contractions are about the highest amount of intense that I've ever experienced in my life. And like, I've been stung by a stingray. Like, there's like, I broke my arm a couple times and I got stitches, but like, birth is just intense. There's definitely moments of pain. But I would say my moments of pain that I experienced in labor were because of even like my resistance, for example. So like, my prep, you kind of asked about that, how
mm.
I'm anticipating to go into this labor and birth experience. And I am just wanting to be completely submissive, be so relaxed, so calm, because in order for my baby to get here, my body needs to dilate. Like, my cervix needs to dilate, my it needs to efface, it needs to prep and get ready. And I can fight and resist that. And if I do, each contraction is going to be more painful and it's not going to be as effective. And so if I can just be completely relaxed, if I can be calm, if I can prep my mind and I can prep my space, for example, which is why I'm so excited about my home birth. I've prepped my space. So now I have like these beautiful Christmas lights that
Mm.
are like around my entire bathroom, around my master bedroom. I have it decorated with plants. I have like my essential oil diffuser, so I'm smelling this peppermint. Like, I just have this aura basically in my home where I feel so safe. I feel so secure. I have my birth team that I trust so much. And it's like, when things are intense and my body's contracting like crazy, if I can just relax and let my body do it, it will. Because I don't need to tell my body how to birth. It knows how to do that. And it will do that instinctually. So there's a lot of intuition, a lot of trust that goes into your body and a lot of respect, because I believe that like it's crazy. Like you'll see like I just recently like did a Kid Have Fit video at like Monster Jam where there's like a stadium full of people, 20,000 people.
Yeah.
And I'm like, every single one of these people got here because a mother birthed her child. Like that is freaking boss. Like you go moms, like that's so many people. It's like everybody got here because they were birthed, and it's so innate, and that is so incredible, and we should be so prideful, like it's so amazing, like girls are so cool that we have the ability to
Yeah.
do that.
For real. It's an incredible, I mean, when you really break it down, it's just amazing to grow life, let alone actually then bring it into the world. And I'm wondering if in your preparation for the home birth, you said that your environment's already set up. Do you put yourself in that position or that place every day and try to get in that mindset?
Yes, I do, especially when I'm getting ready for bed. It's harder to do that when my kids are awake and things like that. But it's usually at night, the kids are asleep. I'm able to go into my bedroom, my master bathroom, and I can take a tub. I can, as I'm getting ready for bed, as I'm taking my makeup off, or as I'm washing my face, brushing my teeth, my lights are down. My head, like the actual lights in the room are
Yeah.
down, but the Christmas lights are on. Like I have my piano music playing in the background, or I have my affirmations playing, and just trying to like soak myself into that vibe and putting myself mentally into that headspace every single night as I get ready for bed is not only routine, but it's actually something that's really helped me get like in my everyday life with my kids. For example, when my kids are so insanely triggering, which if you're a mom, you know that your kids will send you to places mentally that like I couldn't go with anywhere else, or I'm just like, ah, they're driving me nuts. Um, and so being able to practice putting my body in a completely relaxed state when I'm in a very heightened, stimulated sense with my kids or situations, or maybe I'm walking and I trip and I kick the wall on accident, right? Instead of being like, ah, I'm freaking out, busting out a bunch of swear words, like, and being a victim of what just happened. It's like, no, I'm in control of my body. And it's like that hurt like crazy, but I'm going to choose to make my body go completely limp, close my eyes, relax my face, relax my jaw, relax my shoulders, and just go to this place of peace because I'm in control.
Mm.
And that has really helped me be a more patient mom. It's helped me in physical pain, in mental pain, in emotional pain, where I can control my state. Because if I can be in control of my state, I am I have power, right? But if I'm constantly like needing other people to regulate, to keep me regulated, that's out of control, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I love that so much. You're capitalizing on challenging moments to prepare yourself for something that will be highly demanding of you physically.
Yes.
Although innate, it is intense, as you said. So before I ask you like the final question, I want to know if there's anything we didn't talk about or get into that you want to at least touch on.
I feel like we covered so many beautiful topics and we went from one corner of the earth to the end in a
I
good way. We covered so much, and I feel all so passionate about all the topics that we discussed. So hopefully it came across as very genuine, and just our bodies are amazing. Women are so capable. We are so powerful, especially when we're in a healthy state.
Mhm.
Like there's nothing more important to me than making my family be healthy, and me and my husband being healthy. It's it's everything. It is literally everything. And growing our family, being able, I don't know if I mentioned this, I know a lot in our last episode. Like we did IVF to get my second, we did a ton of infertility to get my daughter. And this was a spontaneous pregnancy. We didn't do anything
Oh,
besides be intimate, which was so beautiful that I'm like, babe, you did that. I'm like, good job.
yes.
So excited. And just being able to grow a family, like my priorities have just changed so much. I just feel so blessed. And I'm so grateful that you allowed me the space to share vulnerably all those things that I'm just super passionate about. So just thank you for the
Oh,
opportunity.
of course. It's been my pleasure. I mean, even the things that we talked about, I'm like, I know we could have gone deeper in certain things. And I hope that people will feel inspired to go to your page and watch some of your highlights that do go deeper into some topics that we covered. And also, of course, to subscribe to the YouTube channel. And something that I really appreciate about this conversation is that there's a respect and there's still a space for different opinions, but also how similar perspectives can be and how that then reflects and the evolution of our lives and how as women we are so strong, we are so powerful, we are so amazing, we're equipped, we're capable. And then of course taking it to the children as well. So I just really appreciate you being so open. And my final question for you is what would be your best advice for a competitor who is retiring
A competitor who is retiring.
from competing?
Interesting. I don't know that I've ever had that. I was anticipating you to say, like, for someone who's in the thick of competing, trying to convince them not to, or something
No,
like, no, someone who's retiring. I could be talking to you, Celeste.
who knows?
I love it. And by the way, I'm not going to answer the question that I just made up because I would never convince somebody not to compete because that's totally their decision. But somebody who's retiring, in competing, take all the good. Take all of the good. Take the passion, the energy, the discipline, and the grit that it takes to compete. And if you have the capability to do that, which clearly you do because you're a competitor and you have that, use it for something good. Find whatever it is that you were born to do, whether it's be a mom, whether it's be some, growing your business or just do something good with that because it takes a special person to compete. And if you're able to get through that lifestyle, you're a boss and you can do some pretty freaking amazing things with that grit.
100%. I love that so much. That is so well said. It's like respect the journey you've been on and use it for more in your life. And that being said, obviously you shared how people can find your YouTube channel, Kid Hub Fit. How else can people connect with you? What's your Instagram and your website?
Yeah, so Shea Hub Fit is where I do all of my personal stuff. I'm not as active on there anymore because so much of my time is going toward the YouTube channel. So Kid Hub Fit, Shea Hub Fit, all one word. My name is Shayla, and we have a website. It's kidhubfit.com. We're working on, just trying to be omnipresent in all of the places. We have all the social medias. I think we have like 8 different social medias that post, every single day. So we're trying to really get the word out there. But just search Kid Hub Fit or Shea Hub Fit, and I'm sure we will definitely get in touch. But I'd say Instagram is probably where we're putting most of our focus because that's more of like a community-based platform compared to like Pinterest or Blue Sky or TikTok or other things like that. So I would say Instagram is like the hub for community, and all social medias are pushing to YouTube. So the YouTube channel Kid Hub Fit. I also have a personal YouTube channel, which is the Shea Hub Fit one as well. So yeah, you can catch us there.
Awesome. And we'll put that in the show notes page, you guys. That's always on celestial.fit/podcast. If you're listening right away, it'll be at the top of the page. If you're listening in the future, scroll down to the alphabetized category section where you will find her episode along with the previous one too, because it'll be in the same category. So you can compare notes, which will be fun. And not only will you see how you can connect with us, but you're also going to see a full episode summary, a bulleted list of the topics we covered, and episode timestamps so you can share it with your friends, your family, your teammates, let them know what resonated with you. And with all that being said, I hope you all have an amazing rest of your day, night, or morning, wherever you are in the world while you're listening to this episode. Just make it awesome.